Hello there. If you clicked on this video, I'm going to assume you already have knowledge about the story of Industria. But if you don't, I will give a brief walkthrough of the story. And I will be very brief, so if you want the full story, I highly recommend either playing the game or watching one of the playthroughs on YouTube. So, the story of Industria follows a woman named Nora. She gets a call from her husband Walter and says that the German government is coming to take all of their research that they were doing on an AI called Atlas. Walter says that he has to go and stop Atlas, and Nora says, "Please, let me go with you." And he says, "No, I don't want to drag you into this," and abruptly hangs up. Nora rushes to their office building and finds this big machine that they built going haywire. She steps into it, says, "Oh wow, Walter actually did it," and then fiddles with the machine herself. She's then sucked up through a portal and transported to another dimension. This dimension is completely devoid of all human life, except for one human who she does befriend, but it is full of murderous robots called the Atlas. Nora finds out that Walter actually got there 20 years before her and changed his name to Walter Rosendell. It used to be Walter Rebel, and he became King Rosendell. So Nora goes and journeys through this world and tries to figure out what happened in the last 20 years and what happened to Walter, and eventually she goes and finds him. The game ends with you seeing an old man Walter, and then he calls to you from a different portal. You go to it, and you fall through some dreamlike series where he explains what happened, but nothing really gets explained. Now this is a personal irk of mine. I don't like stories that have mysterious endings where you don't know what's going on. I tried to watch some YouTube videos of my own to try and see what if the story meant at all, because I was very curious. However, nobody really had anything. There was just a few videos just doing what I'm doing now, talking about the story, but talking about it more in length. So I will have maybe a theory or two on what I think the story is, but don't try to assume that this video is a theorizing video. I have no idea what is happening in this story. However, Industria 2 has been announced, so hopefully we'll get more information there. But it's time to go on to what this actual video is about, talking about the library sequences, which are the weird, esoteric, dreamlike sequences that Nora goes through, I think, 4 different times. So, in the first library sequence, which happens as soon as you get sucked through the portal to the other world for the first time, you go in and you are in a library, and eventually you find a door which leads you to a theater. And these theaters are in all 4 of the library sequences, and they're the things that change the most or show you what's happening. Also, I would just like to mention that I got all these screenshots from the Game Archivist because I couldn't be bothered to go through and play the game again and get screenshots of my own. So, shout out to the Game Archivist. Alright, so in the first sequence, you see Walter walk onto stage, and then he gets lifted up and goes all the way off screen into the air, which kind of weird. But then it shows Nora, which she also walks on screen, floats up halfway while being sideways, and then gets stuck there. So that's kind of weird. So when you play this game, you might think that it's just like a time dilation thing that happened, like an hour in the real world was 20 years in this alternate reality, whatever it is, and you think that might be what happened. But these library sequences kind of make it seem like Nora got stuck in the machine for 20 years and time doesn't actually work differently, because you'll see in the next library theater sequence, you see Walter go back down and land in a chair while Nora is still floating in the air. I believe this to mean that Walter went up through the portal, then Nora also went up through the portal, but she somehow got stuck, and while being stuck inside the machine, Walter was able to float down and assume his new life. He might even be in the chair as like a sign of that being a throne, because it's kind of shown that he becomes a little bit of an egotistical ruler over this new world as their king. Well, that's what I think, is that she was stuck there for 20 years instead of actually an hour being 20 years. Now in the next library sequence, Walter walks on screen, and drops one of the hive minds that we see lying all around the game. And slowly it grows bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, this one is kind of explained in game. Walter talks about how he saw what Atlas was doing, which, by the way, he was talking about how Atlas was running amok in the real world, and then you get to this alternate reality, and you find out that Atlas is a group of killer robots that have all sorts of weapons used to kill humans. This is one of the biggest questions. How did a normal computer AI become a race of killer robots in another world? But anyway, on this dream sequence, Walter talks about how he was kind of curious to see what Atlas would do, so he didn't really try to intervene. So I think that's what this scene is trying to show. He is leaving Atlas alone, and it's growing and growing until it becomes an unmanageable monster that he can't control anymore. And then in the final sequence, we see Walter being hooked up to an even bigger Atlas hive mind. Now this is also shown in the final part of the game, where he says that he is chained to Atlas as retribution for his crimes. But it doesn't really show what that means. Is he getting tortured? Is he having to live out being every single robot at once? It doesn't ever really say anything. I was watching another video where somebody was saying Nora was also now trapped inside of the Atlas prison along with Walter. However, with the trailer of Industria 2, it shows that Nora is the main character again, which would prove that theory wrong. Now, that person made that video before the trailer came out, so I'll give them leniency there. They didn't know. Now, my theory for what is going on is, and it's not a very strong theory, mind you, I think that they might be trapped inside of a computer, and these robots are the AI that's inside the computer already running amok. So Walter went in there to try and stop it from the source, but it didn't really end up working out. And now it's time to talk about the librarians. This is why I bought the game. I saw a screenshot of a giant towering figure, and I was like, huh, that looks really cool. I want to know what's going on with that. When you play the game, though, that towering figure just shows up twice in the background. It might show up more times in the background. It disappears after a little while, so maybe I missed it once. But when you're falling through the dreamlike sequences at the end, when Walter is showing you all this stuff, he shows you a glimpse of these figures called the librarians. And in the library, you can see librarians falling from the ceiling, so I don't really know what that means. So I am assuming the librarians are a type of antivirus, maybe? And so they're really mad at Walter and Nora for creating Atlas, which has become like an AI virus infecting a computer. And maybe they even see Walter and Nora as a virus themselves, because Walter talks about how they've angered the librarians. I really hope that we can see more about what's going on with that in Industria 2. But that's about all I had to say. I really want some other people's thoughts maybe on the library sequences. Maybe if you have any theories about what the game could be, put them in the comments. I really wanted to know more about this game, and I was sad to see that there weren't really many videos talking about it, so I figured, hey, I could try to make one. I don't know how great it'll be, but whatever. If you made it this far, then thank you very much for watching.